It's a standstill on the freeway this morning, so I figured I'd yak while I'm sitting in here. Look, here is the seatbelt. It's hidden behind the steering wheel. Kids these days. One of my disillusionments with politics that's currently going on is very closely tied in with my disillusionment with journalism as it's currently being done. Is that everybody's got a narrative. No one can just, oh, this is the truth. Okay, that's fine. I know it doesn't help what I particularly want it to do, but it's the truth, so I'm going to accept it and try to rearrange my argument to account for it, or to otherwise not have my argument hurt by this particular fact. You don't see that very often anymore. I think it was Fox News who started it. Who started the whole, you know, we're just asking questions kind of thing. You know, we report, you decide kind of thing. When I was a younger man, much younger man, I do remember news making at least the attempt at being somewhat neutral, figuring out what the truth is and trying to report on the truth rather than just throwing speculation and incomplete sets of facts out there. And I don't know exactly what's to blame. I'm just speculating myself at this point, but it might have something to do with the 24-hour news cycle, needing to have that constant fresh meat to throw out to keep people engaged and watching your content. I certainly don't think that the 24-hour news cycle helped, especially, you know, another, I guess, irritation of mine is there is a lot of things happening around the world. And this is kind of American-centric, so, you know, I apologize. But in America, or at least what I have seen on the mainstream CNN, Fox, MSNBC, and all that fun stuff, they do very little coverage of what's going on in the world, unless it directly pertains to the US. So at any given time, there are hundreds of wars going on around the world, hundreds of things that we could classify as a war going on around the world. Every day there are terrorist attacks. Every day there are all sorts of fun things that the news doesn't cover, but instead they throw out half-baked, semi-coherent theories. Oh, it's a whole bunch of bikers going by. Vroom, vroom. It's the Iron Souls. They're a three-patcher, I believe. In motorcycle gang speak, that means that they are a motorcycle gang because they've claimed a territory. At least that's what I understand. I worked with a guy who was, he wasn't a Hell's Angel, he was in another motorcycle gang called the Henchmen. It was associated with the Hells Angels. It was like all the people who weren't Hells Angel-y enough to be Hells Angels, but really wanted to be. And he was very proud of his henchman jacket because it had, they call it a rocker at the bottom, or at least they did back then. And the rocker basically claimed your territory. And if you were in another motorcycle gang's territory, then, you know, you might get shot or something, whatever. He was like at the time, he was probably like mid to early 50s, extremely diabetic, really spindly arms, beer belly, and he'd tell me about the fights he'd get into with other middle-aged men who were also terribly out of shape. But he'd come back and he wouldn't have busted up knuckles or a busted up face or anything like that. So, you know, all stories with a grain of salt. Anyway, how did I get onto that? Yeah, incomplete facts. And it seems like, whoa, gotta shift, sorry. It seems like the incomplete facts thing really appeals to certain people. I don't know I wasn't exposed to a lot of conspiracy theories prior to the internet age, and of course the internet age came, for me at least. I did AOL back in like the early 90s, like 92-ish, if I remember correctly. But really, the internet age came for me much later. I didn't really start paying attention to news and stuff until later on in life. It didn't really interest me. But I didn't see a whole lot of conspiracy theories. I guess there were. My parents liked to watch Rush Limbaugh, and of course he would always tell you what the Democrats were thinking. And I'm not trying to bag on the right on this. The left does it too. Anytime anybody tells you what someone else is thinking, take that with a huge grain of salt, because Rush Limbaugh and Democrats don't share a whole lot in thought processes. So I would be extremely entertained to figure out how Rush can figure out what these Democrats were thinking. But conspiracy theories, half-truths, semi-coherent stories, just the facts reported that fit narratives, things like that, have really done a lot of damage, I think, to the way our society works. And I think everybody, including myself, oh, it's a whole bunch of CHP. No, those aren't CHP. Those are some sort of police officers. I think it's a lot of people who are contributing. I think just about everybody contributes to it. We all like to find the facts that support our narrative. We all like to watch the facts that support our narrative. All of OG2's subscribers are getting all pissed off because OG2 has found the truth, that laws exist and they are enforceable, and whether you like them or not, men with guns will enforce them. And now all of his subscribers are, oh no, it's terrible. It's pretty retarded. But we all do it. We all find our little echo chambers. You can see it. You can see it in the auditing community. You know, videos from 2, 3, 4, 5 years ago are getting recycled as new. Incomplete facts. There was a libertarian candidate in, I want to say, Minnesota, who was arrested in June of this year. He wanted to protest some chief of police because a couple officers shot a young man, and he didn't think it was justified or whatever. And instead of letting the courts handle it, he wanted to protest. And also, I don't remember his name, but his big idea, his big government idea, was to arm the homeless. What could possibly go wrong? Fucking retarded. So his big plan was to arm the homeless, and so he goes out to protest. It was a run with the police, or race the police, or something like that. It was an event where the citizens and the police, it was a money-raising event for something, where the citizens and the police could do a run, like a charity run. And he went out there strapped, and a police officer immediately recognized him and said, "Hey, look," and he had called him by name, there is a free speech zone. Now, I'm not a big fan of free speech zones, but technically I believe they're legal unless some state law had kicked in. So they said, there's a free speech zone, you need to be in the free speech zone. So the guy eventually capitulates, goes to the free speech zone, and starts yelling. And the cop was like, look, you can't do that. You can't disrupt the event. I don't know technically how constitutional that would be. I really don't know how constitutional that would be, but maybe. Disrupt the event is a very vague term, and so unless there was some written policy about you can't have your voice louder than X decibels or whatever. I would really doubt that that would be a constitutional command. But regardless of that, the libertarian candidate guy did not appreciate any of that, and so he left the free speech zone and was just determined that he was going to walk around. And the police officer was like, you need to get out of the street, you need to get out of the street, you need to get out of the street, and then he didn't get out of the street, and so they arrested him for some sort of traffic infraction, walking in the street or whatever. So that was a couple months ago. What, about 3 months ago now? June, July, August. So, yeah, November or September 4th, probably 3 months. I could be wrong, but it's 2 or 3 months. Well, anyway, next thing you know, what's that guy in Southern California? I like him. I want to say Junkyard News. He does the fishing with the donut. He did a little video and directed people to it, and then Blue Ghost Media did a video on it, and you know the outrage cycle starts to spin. But there is incomplete facts there. They give you the video, but they don't give you the whole backstory. They don't tell you what the guy was protesting. They don't tell you why the police officer knew him by name, what kind of past history they had. They don't do any reporting on what the policy was. Was that area rented out? Was it like a private function or a semi-private function? Or was it still a completely open public forum? There's no facts there. So the outrage machine starts going and people start speculating, and you know. But it just goes part and parcel with everything that I've seen recently about politics and the news, and it's. I would like to think that I am remaining consistent. You know, that I've gotten flack for oh, now you're just sucking up to Salvaggio. Am I? Was I sucking up to Bao? When I said that, you know, someone wanted me to do a smear piece on him and his DD-214, and I'm like, well, actually it shows that he did serve overseas, so no. Was I sucking up to Bao then? Am I sucking up to James Freeman when I say that James Freeman should not be convicted in the 18 USC 795 Fort Huachuca case? Huachuca, whatever the hell you want to say. Am I sucking up to him? The facts are the facts, and my understanding of the facts is going to dictate my response to them. And you know, I don't call out every liar that I see, because frankly there's not that much time in the day, and a lot of lies aren't really important, like Padilla lying about his arrest, and he didn't do nothing, and you know, Salvaggio is just a bad guy who tried to entrap him. That is inconsequential to me, and it's inconsequential because the court's going to take care of it. But things like Earl saying that, you know, he was a federal agent and using that to convince people that he knows things that he doesn't know, and that they should rely on him as an authority, and they should somehow take defensive measures, ridiculous defensive counterintelligence measures that. You're putting your videos on YouTube, for God's sake. There are no counterintelligence measures you can take to protect you from that. It's retarded. Chicken Hawk pretending he's a super secret solid snake agent man. Damon Chief Jones. God, that guy's full of shit. Cop Cam. I call it Cop Cam because he's a straight liar. He's never won a case yet, ever. Citation needed. Cop Cam, if you ever watch this, he's just full of bullshit. But I call them out because they're relying on their bullshit. They're misleading people based on their bullshit. They're potentially causing problems based on their bullshit. They're not just saying bullshit. If someone wants to say, I caught a fish that was this big, I don't care. But yeah, that was a rant. I did record a rambling while ambling this morning, and I wasn't terribly happy with. I woke up to people still trying to conspiracy theory Salvaggio's post-it note. My mind is. When you wake up to something like that and you're not really prepared to deal with that level of stupidity, it just really throws off the old thought process for me. And I came across as much harsher than I would have appreciated. But yeah, there's a lot of disinformation. There's a lot of misinformation. All the videos that I point out that start off in media res, I'm pointing that out because they are not giving you all the facts. I've rambled enough. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.